Hello everyone. Welcome to part of the Smart Wizard. In this part, we're going to add the Bootstrap controls and we'll add a property pane to customize the Smart Wizard. In previous part 1, we have discussed about how to enable the Smart Wizard, and this one is slightly adding more functionality to the Smart Wizard. So as you can see, part 2, I'm going to enable these two with my source code now. So in the previous part 1, you might have seen we have left from here. So from part 2, I would add the controls to enable for the Bootstrap to be used within this Smart Wizard. Let's go to the program or the project. So if you can see the project, let me stop this because it was running. Okay, so we left it there in part 1, so we just resume the way we stopped there. If you can see, it is just a sample HTML which I copied from the Smart Wizard, and I'm just calling the function. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this Smart Wizard a little bit customizable so that the user can modify some of these properties from outside or when they add the web part. If you go back to the Smart Wizard website, Smart Wizard has several features where the parameters you can pass through, like key navigation, where you can navigate between using the keyboard, and the adjustable height, cycle step. So there are several properties which are already there in the Smart Wizard. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of these properties and make them as kind of easy to configure in the property pane. Okay, let's start doing it from the code. So I'm going back to my code. To start customizing the property pane, there are 3 things you should do. First step is to add the property controls. You need to import the property controls to add the controls later in the program. Second thing, you need to declare your properties in this spfx, whatever the props. So in this interface, you need to declare a variable. These variables are the one going to hold your property values. So later when you say this dot properties, the values will be brought from here. And finally, you need to add some code to show those property pane within your properties. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to import most of the properties which I want to have, and later I will just add those controls. So let me add whatever it is there. Okay, so these are the properties which I'm going to property controls which I'm going to use based on the choices. Later you would see visually when I start adding in. So I'm just importing all the property controls, and when I come back later here, I want to make this non-reactive because there are so much of controls here, so I don't want to get applied every time. So I'll make it non-reactive first. By applying this becomes non-reactive. Okay, and now I'm going to declare the variables which would hold the values for those properties. Right now I'm taking few of the properties from the property Smart Wizard, the parameters, then later I'm going to just add those inside here. Okay, these are mostly self-explanatory. Maybe I'll just show side by side what are the properties which we are going to customize. Okay, so as you can see, I'm just literally taking the property name or the parameter name from the Smart Wizard, which is the key navigation, auto adjust, cycle steps, and some of them I'm omitting it because you really don't want to customize that. So I'm just taking one of the key parameters which you can pass, especially the theme, transition effect, and toolbar settings. Anchor settings I'm not taking in, and finally the next and the previous button. You can specify the next and previous button string you want to have, and the toolbar options, whether you want to have it left, right, or those options. So eventually all these properties you have to pass in and then create that control. That's it. Let me go back to the control here, and these are the properties I'm going to add in. So for each of these variables you need to add your controls, and these controls you need to add it here. Maybe description I don't want to have it anymore. I'll remove it. I remove the description of the header. So probably I would add Smart Wizard. Okay, so Smart Wizard is the description for this page. Probably I'll have 2 pages. Okay, so now what I did is I copy pasted some of for the code for easy view of the in ease of time. I don't want to elaborate each control, but you can go through it later in my source code. I'll go through it what are the controls I've added for now. So what I'm doing is I'm creating 2 pages, property pages. You can see here pages is an array. So I'm creating 2 property pages. One has both has the same header, and inside that I'm creating a group which is the basic settings. So all the basic settings like the keyboard navigation all are grouped under here, and these are self-explanatory, which is like I'm adding a checkbox, I'm adding a where it is checked equal to true, and some of them show, and there is a ruler, and there is a choice column for the theme, and there is a transition effect. Transition effect again, it takes none slide. This becomes a drop down. This is a drop down, and for the transition speed I'm just changing it to a number, which is a slider bar. And there is a second page which takes the toolbar settings, which would have whether to show, hide, back button, and this is a drop down again, and the selected will be bottom, and these are the options for the choice group, and this is for the button position. So basically I'm just creating these controls to show it within the right side pane, and these properties I would need to get it from the this dot properties and assign it to the control or the smart wizard. Let me run this and then check whether it works. Okay. Okay, I'm running the gulp serve. Hopefully there is no error. Webpack, it is running the webpack. Okay, reload in 1.69 seconds. Let me reload this one. The UI should not change. UI is the same, but when I try to do this one, see here. So these are the properties which have been added. The checkboxes. Remember, I checked by default checked it to true in some of the properties. So that is all variable shown here. So let me show side by side in case what are the properties which you have. Okay, so these are the properties which you can see here on the side by side. Okay, hope that is kind of useful. And you can see here nothing is selected, and here it is none. Item count is 200. I'm not setting it any value, and there is no apply, it is reactive, non-reactive. So you see the apply button. Whenever something changes, then the apply is enabled. And you can see there are two pages. The second page is the toolbar settings. The first one is the basic settings. So second page I have several options, left and right, and the toolbar next are the button text. You can change the button text really here. Okay, so now it is working. And there is one more feature within the properties where you can set it when the program load is through the configuration file. If you go to the package solution, yes, no, when you go to your webpart properties, so when you select, see here, this is the manifest file, webpart manifest file. When you select the webpart manifest file, there is one properties here. So this is the place where it initializes your property when the application runs or the app run at the first time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my default values from here, so that when application start, I would have the default values automatically set in, so that it becomes much easier for us. So I'll remove the description. I'm setting it here. Okay, so now if you notice that last time the value was not set for the transition speed, now I'm setting it to 500, bottom right, and then the text. Last time the text was not there, but now I'm setting it to default. So now if I run the application, or now if I do the gulp serve, I should be able to see the button text plus the other default values. Hopefully it will run. I'll close this one. I'll wait for it to complete. Webpack is running. Write manifest. Yeah, reload 1.96. Yes. So now if you refresh this, when it loads, it should see the default value set. Let me refresh. Okay, so when I refresh, these settings are all enabled based on the load value, and it is now dots. Value is 500, and you can see it is bottom. It is all checked, and the text is also there. You can change the text later on. So now I'm setting the default value through the properties, and it is working now. The next step is to program such a way that these properties could be applied to the control. Okay, so now all these property values are saved inside a property called this.properties. Remember, when I use, let me go back up. Okay, so now this.properties would have all these values. I need to pass this.properties to all these value. So basically, if you look for this.properties dot, okay, so all the values which you see here is carried over here. So I need to use this to set the value. Let me set the value now. Okay, so now what I did is I am getting the this property dot values into props variable, so that for me it is easy for you to assign. So once these values are assigned into props, I'm just creating the same with the different, with all the parameters. I'm just passing everything as a parameter. So all these properties like key navigation, everything comes from the right property pane now. So eventually, when every time when the render method call, it should change the smart wizard. So hopefully it works. Maybe now I run the no browser. Webpack configure. It should finish by then. Webpack write manifest, reload. So now it is reloading. Let me refresh. Okay, now it works. So if you see here, I set it to default round or the circles. It has eventually taken place. So now it is dots, sorry, not the round or the circle, it's a dots. So it taken the default dots, and these are the properties which are enabled. So now when I try to navigate between using the keyboard, it works. So this property is working. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the theme and going to set the transition to fade. I'm just setting to 1000. Okay, just to show. And I'm going to the next page. The next button, you can remove this, and previous button I'm removing this. Okay, so let's see whether it works. Okay, see here, so my property changes have been taken place. When you do previous next, there is a fade effect. Also it becomes an arrow, and this is 1000. So these property values are taking effect, which means that PropertyPane is working, and you can literally change some of the properties which you can see for the Smart Wizard. Okay, so this is about setting out that Smart Wizard and make it much more configurable. Okay, so now with the properties working, now I'm going to add a functionality or the Bootstrap controls for a specific use case. So my use case would be like the same animal taxonomy. Last time, if you have seen my videos, I have gone through what is the organism is. So I created a list. I have a list maybe, which is called organisms, in which it has a name, which is a title, change it into a name, description, which is multi-column, genus, species, and family order is just a single line of text. Picture, organism picture is a picture column, and this is again a text column. So this is a list which I am going to enter value through a wizard. So it takes you to basic properties first, and then the file upload to the next screen. So this form I am going to just mimic using Smart Wizard. So nothing but the user can enter in, but it's just a matter of like giving a better UI and upload control, so you can directly upload and then just tag it there. Later I would share this template. If you want list template, then you can just use that. And for the bootstrap controls, it is pretty much simple. I always use the w3school.com bootstrap, in which you have a sample HTML file. Most of the time I would use the input groups, which are much easier and user friendly, and it has a much rich UI. So basically I just copy this and put it into my HTML and slightly change it. And you have a custom forms as well. I'm going to use this upload control, which is from the Bootstrap. Just copy the HTML from this Bootstrap page, this one. They also have the JavaScript jQuery code, and just copy paste this one, then it starts to work. And these two are the main controls I would use. And basically what I'm doing is I'm going to change to reflect it in the HTML part. So now I would remove this HTML. I no longer need this. Let me stop if it is running. Control C. Yes. Okay. So now I'm going to add the whole form which I built in already, because building a form from the scratch at this time is kind of time consuming. So better I would just build it before and then just copy from there. So let me copy it. So I have it designed before, so I copied it already. This is the full HTML of the wizard. Basically I'm just creating a container, then I'm creating 4 pages, which takes you to a 4 wizard page. The first page contains basic settings of the taxonomy or the organisms, and the second one is the additional details, which is nothing but the upload control plus the description of an animal. And the third one, I'm just going to show the animal which you have entered in a preview card format. And finally, there is a setting summary page. In any wizard, you will have a summary page, and then finally confirm. And these are the HTMLs. Later you can go through with my full source code available, then you would know it is just straightforward. See here, I'm just adding a label and then the input group, which I just directly copied from the Bootstrap input group. Then change it slightly you want to have. I use effectively most often the fontawesome. If you see here, instead of just the Bootstrap glyphs, I'm just using the fontawesome fonts. So each input values would have the fontawesome icon, so that it is easier and then user friendly. It is appealing to the UI. So I created this. Hopefully it should work. Let me run it and wait for it to build. Meanwhile, I'll go through this. Let me check. Let me close this one and wait for this to complete. Configuring webpack is running and it should complete the load. Yeah, now I need to rebuild this or reload this one. I'm just saving it. Okay, so when I refresh and reload, the page has come like this. So basically I have designed the Bootstrap controls, which you see here. These are the Bootstrap control, which is the input group, and this is the fontawesome icon. I choose the icon, DNA icon, and for the family and order. This takes you to the first page. So second page, when you go to that, you have a details and the file control. You can choose the file control and you can upload it. This should upload it into your SharePoint library and give the URL of the path. And I'm creating a sample card like structure to show what are the values you have added in, just a simple preview, so that how it looks like. Because previous videos I have shown you how to create a carousel control or Bootstrap cards using the animal taxonomy with the same list. So that same list you can just see preview how the card will look like before setting it. And finally the summary. I am using two options, which is called the collapsible control. So you can collapse and expand. This is like an accordion control, basic settings and the additional settings. And finally the submit button. So when you submit, it calls the method and it has to submit. So right now there is no code written for any of this. It's just the UI. So that's how for this part 2, it is more of like designing the control and then setting it there. So that's how in the part 2 we concluded it. And later in part 3, I would go through installing the package pnp.js and how to wire up these controls to the original list item and get the values and then insert it into the list. Stay tuned for the part 3 and the final working solution will be there. For part 2, source code, full source code will be available in the Github. Please see the description below to download the full source code for part 2. And for part 2, only the fontawesome is installed. Okay. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video on part 2. Stay tuned for part 3. Thank you.